Welcome to Let's Make a Game Platformer, episode 12. In last episode, I've added the check for player's death when player leaves the bounds of the game. And in this episode, since we already have two different ways the game should, the gameplay should end, either player reaches the end portal or dies, we should probably add something that resembles menu or place where the user will be able to start off the game with, and also where he will land once they die or complete the level. So maybe let's start off with something simpler. Splash screen and then background of the menu. So since we will have basically two different parts of the game, we'll have the menu parts and the gameplay part, I found it very useful to have two different contexts in the platformer class. In the main class, we have here a context for gameplay, and I'd like to introduce a second context for menu specifically. So let's start off by renaming this one to be gameplay context. And let's create a new one. Let's call it, so let's rename this gameplay active profiles. Move this up here. Extract this to a new method, create gameplay context. And we will have another one, create menu context. It's kind of based on annotations. So we'll create here menu context. We will copy this method. Context. And let's make this one return it. And have this one be menu context, and this one be gameplay context. So now we have two contexts. This is a menu context, and this is menu active profiles. So let's start off with what we actually need for the menu active. We need the renderer. We will need some entities, texture atlas. We will not need shapes. This for the time being. We'll need prefabs, events, indices, and time. Okay, so that's it for the menu context. However, so the thing is now, whenever we create the menu context, all the classes that have the @registered service will be included. So let's create a new profile for gameplay. So first we find in the path register system, and we'll make sure that all of the systems here require gameplay profile. Profiles equals gameplay. So all the existing stuff is going to be only existing in the gameplay case. Okay. Player death, player spawn. Platformer entity provider, yes. Keyboard controls, yes. So this requires an array. Let's make it a first one, just to show that this is gameplay immediately. and closing. Gravity should not exist. The menu level exit as well. Player, we don't need a player in menu either. And we don't need character rendering or environment rendering or platform entities rendering. Okay, so now we need to make sure that our gameplay context includes the gameplay, and let's check that everything still is working. Okay. Rendering entity provider. So our platformer rendering entity provider is not getting loaded gameplay. Okay, this is for the other context. So let's for now disable the creation of the other context, the menu one, because we have to create the rendering entity provider for the camera, for the menu one. So let's just run this. Okay. Yes. Okay, it seems everything is working still. Okay, so now we have gameplay context separately, and now we can create a menu context. And let's, in the platformer, create a new package. Let's call it menu. And let's create, we have to create the rendering entity provider. So platformer menu rendering entity provider, register system, and we'll say that it's profiles menu. So we have to make sure that our menu context in this indeed has the profile menu, and it has to implement rendering entity provider and shares rendering entity provider class. And actually it's going to be very similar to the other one. So let's just copy it. Just to speed it up a bit. Distance from screen. We don't need this. We don't need those. Instead of rounding rendering entity, we'll route menu rendering entity. So we'll have to create a prefab called menu rendering entity. To implement lifecycle system. And we'll just fix the position at 0, 0. Distance from screen. This is probably not going to matter at all. Look at 0, 0, 0, and up is 1, 0, 0. Awesome. Yeah, that's it. So let's now in here, let's introduce a boolean many shown, and in our render loop we'll do if many shown, otherwise we'll do the gameplay context processing. And in menu we will have to have similar stuff happening. So we'll update the time. We don't need physics. We will need internal game loop and rendering engine. Okay, so by default we will be showing many on the startup, and these have to be used instead of the gameplay context. So these classes, so the time manager, game loop, and rendering engine from the many context rather than from the gameplay context. So let's run it and see how it goes. Okay, you need time entity provider. Yeah, platformer time entity provider. We'll just copy it. Okay, you might want to change it later. That's why we'll have a second one. Platformer many. Oh no, delete. Incorrectly named it. Platformer many time entity provider. Okay, and the profile is many. So let's run it now, and let's hope it's going to work correctly. Okay, seems to be working fine. We are seeing blue screen because our many rendering and it has a background color component with blue. So maybe let's change it to black just so we can see that this is the one that is actually being rendered. Okay, we have black screen. Okay, so this is our menu context being rendered here, which is what we wanted to achieve, and we can easily switch it once we switch this flag to render to work on the gameplay one. So this is temporary for now. Here you have to do a similar thing. If many shown, you have to do the same thing on different ones. Many context. Okay. The size. We have here the systems context. So let's move it to gameplay. Systems in. This is gameplay context, and we'll do the similar thing for the many context. In many context, and in here we'll use many context. Okay, so we'll be printing these out so we know what's going on. And okay, so now let's start working on the splash screen. As I said, I have created an image here, which I'll add to my repository, which is basically this. And what I'd like to do is render this on the middle of the screen as a splash screen. So let's start maybe with, there is a background image component. So modify the rendering entity, saying that background image component, and we have to provide these. let's just put them here to be aware of them. So texture atlas ID will create a splash screen. Maybe splash screen camel case. Texture name is splash slash JGT logo large PNG. Let's leave padding top and padding bottom paddings for the time being not unchanged, and we have background red, which is gonna be 255 because we want to have white background. So you can see it's white. I'll show what it means for. Actually, at the moment we don't have to specify it. It's gonna work just as is. So now we'll create in our menu here. We'll create a package rendering. Let's do a splash screen system. Class. I have to close up this. Okay, splash screen system. We have to register it. We have to make sure that it's registered only with menu profile. And you'll have implements life cycle system. So let's go from for okay, at the moment, so this is not really needed. Let's just make sure that this is going to be rendered. I have to make sure that it's loaded first. Okay. So we'll in our initial, so we will need inject texture atlas registry, and in our initialize method texture atlas register textures. The name was splash screen, and the texture path is splash slash JGT logo large PNG. Okay. So this is gonna load this. They create a texture atlas with name splash screen with this texture in it. So let's run it and see that the texture is actually displayed. Logo. Okay, we see it. It's getting weirdly positioned, but that's because that's how it's supposed to be. That's how I want it to be. So if you want to be on the center, the logo, we have to add the padding to the prefab here. We have padding top, and the value here is the percentage of the, for top and bottom, the height of the image, and for left and right, the width of the image. So if we put 1, which is going to be 100% basically, then we will have quite a huge gap, and let's see how it looks. Maybe it's going to be fine. Right. Okay, and run it. Okay. Left had a typo in it. Okay, so now we have here, if we spread it, so the left side, left padding, is the same width as the image, and the right as well. However, if the image is going to be scaled down based on height, then this distance from top to the image is the same height as the image, and so on. So this gets nicely positioned. However, at the moment this is black. If we want to change this, we specify the background red. So we want to be white, so it's going to be 255. Background green, 255, and background blue, 255. So let's run it now. Okay, so now we have proper fill. Maybe since I'll make the padding a bit smaller, maybe half, so only half of the width or height on all sides. Let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, that's good. The quality of the image is not great, but you just have to make a larger image here and it's going to be fine. Yeah, I think that's okay, padding. So this is how the background image component works on the rendering entity. So the same way we before had the rendering with a color, specified only background color, this one allows you to render an image. So let's now maybe go for creating a... So we can have, might want to have multiple splash screens shown. I'll show us how to do it. So let's create a splash screen prefab, or splash series prefab maybe. And there's going to be a prefab, so here, and we'll create a splash series component. Interface implements extends component, and we'll here add string get texture atlas ID, and in here we add in list of strings will be get texture descriptions, get splash descriptions. Okay, so let's add it to our splash series. We have a texture atlas ID. It's going to be splash screen, and we have splash descriptions. That is going to be an array of strings. Okay, so let's go with saying that's going to be splash JGT logo large PNG and pipe. So we're going to make a pipe separator here, and this is going to be a length of the how long this image is going to be shown. And let's create a second one here using this logo we get from BedLogic, which is the author of the libgdx. Let's show it as well. Logic slash, sorry, it's going to be in BedLogic slash JPG, and it's going to be shown for 3 seconds. now. We can easily change it since it's in a text file, and let's specify the background for it. So that logic is going to be on black background. So 0, 0, 0, and our logo will be on white. So 255, 255, 255. Okay. So now we have the splash series. In here we will just remove it because we don't want to specify anything. Everything's going to be specified here. And in the splash screen system, in the initialize, we'll make sure we have the prefab manager that will allow us to load the splash series prefab. And we will need entity manager to be able to read it easily from it. So let's go with prefab manager, get prefab by name splash series, splash series, prefab, and splash series and entity manager wrap entity data splash series prefab splash series, and we will create a string. So these are going to be the images we want to pack into the texture atlas. So image paths. So we go through splash series get component splash series component. Let's splash series component and splash series component get text splash descriptions. We'll iterate through them. Splash description, splash description. And here we'll do split by pipes, and the first element is texture path. So image paths are texture. Let's call it image path as well. Okay, and here we'll be loading with splash series get texture atlas AD, and we'll be loading the image paths. Awesome. So we'll now be loading them. Maybe in here we will remove it completely, and in here we'll create inject rendering entity provider. And so we'll also need a time manager, and we'll be doing an update. So during update we'll be switching the images between first and second and setting the first one as well. So we will have here a game loop, and this will have to implement game loop listener. So in here we'll implement the method, and we'll do shown index. By default we don't show any. So if shown index is -1, that means we have to create one. So we will get the rendering entity provider get rendering entity. It's gonna be here, and we'll create a new create component background image component. And in the background image, okay, we have to add a setter to it. Okay, so we have these values. So we have to set texture atlas ID is gonna be, now we have to remember it here. Texture atlas ID, store it in a field, and we set it here. Background image set texture name. Maybe we'll store the whole thing. So we don't need this. Instead, we will use the splash series component get texture ID and splash this component get 0 splash description. We'll split it by pipe. And first element of the array is the texture name. Second element of this is time. Third element is color. So string color is splash description of 2. And we'll split this by comma. So we will be setting background image set background red first, color so it's integer parse int color 0, 1 and 2, green and blue. I guess we have a typo in green, background green, yes. Okay, and we have to rendering entity save changes. So now, even though our rendering entity is empty, we should still see the first image because it gets switched by the splash screen system based on our splash series prefab. Let's see if that's working. Oh, we have a new pointer somewhere. Probably we have bad path. That logic JPG, JGD logo large PNG. Let's maybe for now get rid of this one. I don't know if it can load JPGs, but it should be able to. reason does not support really the comments. Let's see what's getting passed here. Path is S. Interesting. Yes, pipe is actually a special character, so we have to escape it in here. This is a regular expression we are passing here. Pipe is a special character, so we have to escape it. So now hopefully it's going to work. It is not, for some reason. Okay, let me debug this. Okay, so what happened? This method was never called because the game loop didn't know about our class. So let's run it this time. Okay, this is something different now. Yes. So our splash description in here also needs a double backslash. Okay, and here we have to do shown index 0. Because we're trying to add the same component twice to the same entity. So obviously it's going to be complaining. So now it shouldn't, because we are telling that we are showing the first splash screen. Okay, that is working fine. Maybe we'll add here also, maybe by default we'll always specify that the background image padding left is 0.5, right top bottom by default. Okay, so let's now add back the bad logic one. And maybe instead of this saying how long this is gonna be done, it's gonna be saying until which seconds is the start of the application is gonna be done. So this is gonna be from start to 3rd second, from previous one till 6th second. It's gonna be easier to modify them here. So let's gonna do here time manager get time. If time greater than get shown index split. Should probably extract this logic somewhere. Maybe I'll do it in a moment. 1 and long parse long. Then we have to move to the next one. Shown index plus plus. And in here, set based on splash description. Oh, maybe here. Shown index. So here we'll be doing rendering entity provider get rendering entity. Rendering entity, it already has here at this point, so we just got get class background image. We don't need texture atlas. This is going to be common for all of them, so we only set it once as well. So in here we'll just call to update it, specifying set based on splash description. With the shown index and rendering entity save. And so this is done. If shown index greater than the splash series component size, greater or equal. So we are out of splash screens to show. We'll do rendering entity provider and rendering entity, remove component, splash, no, background image class. So we remove it, rendering entity, save changes. So when we run out of splash screens to show, and in here, if maybe this is going to be different. If shown in here, we'll do the check because we just incremented it. Otherwise, we update it. So this is not needed because we do it when we are switching the images to the next one. So if we are at the end, okay, let's see if it works. So we will be seeing the BadLogic logo for 3 seconds, and then the JavaGate development logo for another 3 seconds, and then black screen because we are removing the background image component. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, something didn't work, but obviously we are on the right track. In here, if shown index is less than splash series component gets path description size. So we are not already after it, after the end. Let's check this. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Okay, that's it for this episode. If you like it, make sure to like the episode and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.